I read this quote recently that said, "We are our grandmother's granddaughters." How many of you grew up closely with your grandmothers? If you did, you might have grown up kind of like me. I grew up watching soap operas like The Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, referred to collectively by my grandmas as the stories. And when I went away to college, I wasn't watching the stories so much anymore. And so I remember coming in once and looking at my grandma, and her eyes were filling with tears. And she said, "Brittany, did you hear that Victor got kidnapped?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Grandma, no. Victor from church?" And she just looked at me like I had lost my whole mind and said, "No, crazy. Victor from the stories," as if I was supposed to intuitively know that her tears were induced by the kidnapping of a fictional character. That would be like me saying, "Oh my God, did you hear that Harry's parents died, Grandma?" And then her asking me, "Who, baby?" And me saying, "Harry Potter." I mean, come on, Granny. But the stories, though, were so ingrained into my life that even when I played with my Barbies as a child, it wasn't Malibu Barbie, "Let's go to the mall." It was Malibu Barbie, "We're about to go kidnap Victor. Are you in or are you out?" I think a lot about stories like that, but I especially think about my grandmothers. All of the fire they gave me and all of the quirks. My maternal grandma, she never made it past the 6th grade in school. In education, we refer to the students who are the first in their immediate families to go to college as first generation. Sometimes, though, I wonder if they were the first who did go or the first who could. My mama was that person on her side of the family, but for her mama, college was not an option. She was a sharecropper, and that was the only option. I think about all the times she prayed for me, and one of her most fervent prayers was for me to get an education. And I am the product of those prayers. My grandma never got to go to college, but she got to see me go twice. She planted the seeds so that I could have the flowers, and I am my grandmother's granddaughter. So when I went away to school, I went to Duke, by the way, hold your applause out there. I really felt like I was doing something. I mean, honestly, you cannot tell me nothing, and my mama can attest to that. Don't nod too hard out there, mama. But I didn't know that my whole world was going to be drastically altered. So I'm a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. We are the largest tribe east of the Mississippi River and the 9th largest tribe in the nation. We're very proud of that. So when I went to Duke, which is only about a 2-hour drive from my home in my tribal territory, I was shocked at the ignorant comments that people made to me about my Indigenous identity. They'd ask me stuff like this: "What part Native are you?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, all parts? I guess if I had to choose one, it'd be my mouth because I'm very sassy. Others would say things to me like, "Do you live in a teepee? Can you speak your language for me? Do you just feel so connected to nature? Are you sure you're Native?" Or my all-time favorite, "My great-grandma was a Cherokee princess." Others were just perplexed that I could be so blessed country. They would say things to me like, "How are you so Southern? I thought that Indians are supposed to sound more mystical." I wanted to say, "Well, bless your heart. Honey, we are the South. And in the words of Lumbee historian Melinda Maynor Lowry, we were here before something called the South ever existed." Some of these comments might sound funny, and some of them were, but there were others, like the time I was working at my job on campus, and a security guard who I knew told me that he had read all about Lumbee people, and he read that we have smaller brains than the rest of the population. Yeah, that one got me. And this kind of commentary has not just been from people at universities. I began to realize that Americans in general learn very, very, very little about Native history. Think for one moment about what you learned. For most people, it goes something like this: Columbus discovered America, though there were already people here. Then Thanksgiving happened and the Pilgrims and Indians had a nice little meal together. That wasn't nice. And then there was the Trail of Tears, if you learn about that at all. And that's it. A recent study by Sarah Shear and colleagues shows that 87% of all Native content taught in schools occurs from a pre-1900s context. So people have a very basic, very stereotypical, very antiquated, and often very false view of Native history that does not allow for the authenticity and complexity of actual Native identity. And some people actually don't even know that Native people still exist. I met a lady recently who was a teacher for years in a nearby county. She was interviewing me for a scholarship, and she asked me the questions often asked in scholarships, and one of them was, "What is your passion?" And I became really nervous because to some, the truth is controversial, but I thought, here goes. I started to talk about how the school system perpetuates egregious lies about the founding of this country and the genocide of Native people, and then I began to talk about Christopher Columbus and how he did not discover America, but was instead an evil rapist murderer. And she looked at me and said, "Really? I've never heard any of that." And internally, I was thinking, well, buckle up, Patty, because boy, do I have about 500 years worth of stories for you. Her name was not actually Patty, by the way, and I did not get that scholarship. But talking to, not her name, Patty, and people like her makes me think about my own position at this university. So at this university, there are 1,073 doctoral students, one of whom is Native American, and that one is me. There are 1,169 professors and lecturers, one of whom is Native American, and that one was also me. I get told regularly that this is so unique and so special. Unique, though, is code for lonely. What I would give to have another Native in my PhD program, or a Native professor's class to take, or if a Native student would enroll in one of my classes. And then that happened. I taught a social work class on campus for the past 2 years, and last summer, I was reviewing my class roster for the upcoming semester, and I saw one particular student's name and immediately knew that she was Lumbee. There are about 10 very common Lumbee last names, and she had one of them. And I hollered. A friend came running in the room thinking I was suffering from a heart attack until I delivered the news. I was getting my first Native student, and my first Lumbee student specifically. Since I've been in my PhD program, which is hopefully my last degree, I came to the realization that I have never, and I will never have, a Native professor during my entire collegiate experience. Not in undergrad, not in grad school, and not now. I have been subjected to so many microaggressions over the course of my college career that I had basically resigned myself to the fact that universities, though marketed as these beacons of scholarship and genius, can really be places that are incredibly lonely and harmful for Native students. But this was my beacon of hope. I will never have a Native professor, but I get to be one. This time I get the seeds, and she gets the flowers. Perhaps those who come after her will get the garden. I cannot escape all of the unfortunate comments that people will make to me about Native people, and neither can my student. But we can make it easier for those who come after us. And that is the blessing, to pave the path our people cleared for us, to live our lives towards the goal of becoming good ancestors. My research in my PhD program and my work in the classroom focuses on doing that by undoing the harmful stereotypes about Indigenous people that we have all internalized, Native and non-Native alike, and to show people the undeniable, the unending, and the innumerable contributions of Native people to America. Your rivers are named after us, your towns, your counties, your states. Your government is based on our governments. We're not to blame for that one, though. We are enmeshed into your everyday realities. We were here before America ever was, and we are inevitable. To all my Native people out there listening, you already know what I'm talking about. Your lives are representations of this resilience, this inability to quit, this vivacity, and this spunk. To all the non-Native people listening, there is much work to be done. For example, right now, do you know whose land you're on? If you're listening from Charlotte, do you know that you're on Catawba land? For those listening from all across the state, do you know that you are on Halawa, Coharie, Waccamaw, Saponi, Occaneechi, Meherrin, and Lumbee land? Those beyond North Carolina's borders, do you know anything about the people on whose land you reside? Even if that land is no longer in their possession, it is your responsibility to know from whom it was stolen. That is a truth that cannot be stolen. That is a reality that cannot be moved. My grandma used to sing a song called "I Shall Not Be Moved." The lyrics go something like this. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved. How true those words feel to me today. I give this talk in part as a gift to my family. I lost my maternal grandmother in 2014, but my paternal grandmother passed away this past November, my father's mother. She was so many things, but she was especially funny. She was one of those grandmas who makes inappropriate jokes, so sometimes when we would all gather to take a picture, instead of cheese, she'd say, "Everybody say sex." She was fiery, vivacious, spunky, hilarious, sweet, thoughtful, wonderful, powerful, and unstoppable. If we are our grandmother's granddaughters, then I thank God that I am mine. I am thankful that they were the seeds to my flowers. I am thankful that they helped me bloom. I am thankful that my life as an Indigenous woman is not a series of compromises, but a recognition that sometimes it is necessary to be immovable, like the song my grandmother would sing. I am thankful for grandmothers who taught me how to plant my feet, just like they planted seeds within my spirit. We grow where we are planted, and I thank God for the grandmothers who planted me. Thank you.